Hey guys, this is for our class for Tuesday the 26th. So I'm sending you the video anyway, but my supervisor let me know that I do have to be live for our whole class period. So I will be live on Collaborate from 6 to 7:15. So you can stop by whenever you want to. I will start full group instruction around 6:45, but I'll be available as early, like I said, as 6 o'clock. So if you want to stop on by and we can discuss the lesson, I can answer specific questions. You can, bring up any homework problems you have for this class or for the 1111 class, and I'll be happy to help you. So anyway, that's how we'll have to do it from now on. So like I said, either watch the video if that's what helps you best, or like I said, come on by and we can have a live lesson just in a small group form. So whatever you want to do. All right, so by the end of this class, you should be able to do homework for these sections, 3.1, 3.2, 4.4, and the study skills session 0.5. Now 4.4, I'm not really going to go back over problems like that. It says translating English phrases into algebraic expressions, because it was so similar to our lesson from last week, 2R3. So when I look at the questions on Hawks, they're almost identical. So anyway, if you need to go refer back to last week, please do that. But I do want to spend a good bit of time talking about graphing lines, because we're going to be doing that for the rest of the class as well. All right, so as far as your study skills lesson, you're supposed to read Roman numeral 18, note-taking discussion. So when we meet live today, I want to ask you guys the following questions. Other than what is described in that section, what are two other note-taking methods? What are some abbreviations not listed in this section that you could use while taking notes for class? How do you take notes? Do you ever rewrite your notes? And how do you know what to write down? So those are all great questions. Hopefully, as you guys are watching the video and doing the practice, you are making your own notes. So we'll discuss that for a few minutes. All right, but we do want to talk about the coordinate plane. So here on the screen, you can see that the coordinate plane is divided into 4 quadrants. So if you have 2 positive numbers, you're going to find yourself in quadrant 1. If you have a negative number followed by a positive number, you're going to end up in quadrant 2. If you have 2 negative numbers, you're going to find yourself down here in quadrant 3. And then quadrant 4 is when you have a positive number and a negative number. So we're used to most things going clockwise, but the quadrants are labeled counterclockwise. Okay. Then of course we have our horizontal axis. So the horizontal axis is the x-axis, and then the y-axis is the vertical axis. So hopefully you guys probably remember all that from high school back in the day. All right, so let's see what else we need to know. It says these axes, the x and y axes, divide the plane into 4 sections called quadrants, and they're labeled there on the screen for you. Points on the coordinates plane are given as an ordered pair, which is plotted at the intersection of where the x value falls on the x-axis and where the y value falls on the y-axis. So when you're given a coordinate or ordered pairs, those terms can be used interchangeably. The first number is going to tell you how to move on the x-axis. So if it's positive, if the first number is positive, you're going to go right on a coordinate plane. If the first number is negative, you're going to go left. And your second number, if it's positive, you're going to move up on a coordinate plane. And if it's negative, you're going to move down. So you always start at the origin. So the coordinate for the origin is 0, 0. So every time you start to graph a point, you always start at the origin. So let's look at the first coordinate. We have +1, +8. So we're going to go from the origin, right 1, and then from there we go up 8, 6, 7, 8, and there's our little point right there. We'll label that A. The second point, we go left 2, up 8. So from the origin, we're going to go left 2, up 8, and we are right there. We'll call that point B. The third point, we're going to start at the origin. We're going to go left 3 and then down 9. So 1, 2, 3, down 9, right down here. We'll call that point C. And for the last one, we're going to go right and then down. So we're going to go right 4, down 5, and we'll call that point D. So how does that feel? You guys remember all that stuff? I hope you do. All right, so not only do you have to be able to move your points on the coordinate plane, but you also have to identify where it lands as far as what quadrant it lands in, or you have to identify which axis it lands on, okay? So let's look at our first problem, or ordered pair, I guess. So if we have a positive followed by a positive, that means we're going to go right and then up. So that means we're going to land in quadrant 1. The second ordered pair, we're going to go right and then down. So we're going to go right and then down. So we're going to be way down here in quadrant 4, right? Quadrant 4. And then the third point, we go left and then down. So we're going to go left and then down here, and that is quadrant 3. So like I said earlier, the kind of numbers or kind of ordered pairs it takes to get into quadrant 2 would be a negative. So let's say -3, +2. So we'd go left 3, up 2, and we would find ourselves in quadrant 2. Now let's look at this one. These can be a little confusing. So this is the time that you're allowed to talk to yourself, and maybe people won't think you're crazy. So if you talk to yourself and say, okay, I know the first number tells me to go right or left, and this tells me to go right or left 0 spaces. So in other words, I'm not going to go right or left, but then I am going to go up 3. So start at the origin, do not go right or left, go up 3, 1, 2, 3. So where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves on the y-axis. So can you think of an ordered pair that would put you on the x-axis? What about if we did -4, 0? All right, so what does the first number tell us to do? Right or left? So we would go left 4 from the origin, left 4, and then the second number says don't go up or down. So from the origin, left 4, so we find ourselves on the x-axis, okay? All right, so I'm going to turn this PowerPoint off for just a second. And let me pull up your homework because you're going to have to move coordinates or dots around. So let me just show you what that looks like. All right, so we're on section, what section is this? 3.1? All right, let me get out of here. I'm sorry, I should have been ready for this. So 3.1, there it is right there. All right, so it's going to give you some coordinates and you're going to move your points around the coordinate plane. So the first one says 4, 4. So all I got to do, I can click anywhere and I'm going to have a dot, right? So then I'm going to move it. So from the origin, I'm going to start off at 0. I'm going to go left, or excuse me, right 4, up 4, and I'm going to drop it right there. And if I drop it in the wrong spot, I can click on it and move it. So then my next point is going to be left 6, up 4. So on the origin, I'm going to go left 6, up 4, and there I am right there. And then -6, -2, left 6, down 2, left 6, down 2. There we go. And right 7, down 3, right 7, down 1, 2, 3, and there we go. And I got my little green correct button. Awesome. Okay, now if you notice the next problem, it tells me a coordinate and then it asks me where am I, which quadrant am I in, or am I on one of the axes? So 1, 4, where would that put me? Put me in quadrant 1. All right, so that's how you're going to do this section. There's a few more other types of questions we're going to get to in just a minute. So hopefully all of that old stuff will come back to you. All right, so just a little bit more practice. So why don't you stop the video and do these on your own and see what you guys get, and then come back and check your answers. All right, so letter A, we ended up at 5-2, so that would be quadrant 1. B would be 0, 3. Don't go right or left, go up 3. So that would be on the y-axis. The third one, we would go left 3, up 8. So we'd be in quadrant 2. So this is, let's rename these just to make sure. All right, what about D? We went left and then down, right? Left and then down, so that's in quadrant 3. Letter E, we go right and then down, so that would be quadrant 4. Have to practice our Roman numerals again. It's been a while. And then for F, we go left 2 and then we stop, so we find ourselves on the x-axis. How'd you guys do? I bet everybody got them all right. I'm sure you did. All right, now the other type of problem you're going to have looks like this. So we are using our substitution method. So this is basically a T-chart. I prefer T-charts when they look like this, just because, I don't know, I just like them better. So whatever you prefer, you can always rewrite it if you don't like the way it looks. So basically it's telling us which variable we're substituting. So for example, this first part of our T-chart is telling us that we're going to substitute 0 for y. So I'm going to plug in a 0 right there. So I'm going to think of what's 12x minus 10 times 0 equals 18. Well, what is 10 times 0? 10 times 0 is nothing. It's 0. So that goes away pretty much, right? So I would rewrite that as 12x equals 18. And now I want to solve for x. So how do I get rid of times 12? I'm going to divide both sides by 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1. And then I can divide 18 and 12 both by 2. And I get 9, 6. So actually I could divide them both by 6. So I don't think Hawks will let you leave it in 18 over 12. I think you'll have to simplify it. So our greatest common factor of 18 and 12 is 6. So 18 divided by 6 is 3. 12 divided by 6 is 2. That's our best answer. It's in simplest form. So make sure when you're in Hawks, remember you push that little button for that box and it opens that box and then you see your fraction. So make sure you click that fraction button and plug in 3 over 2. And I did this section of your homework already, and there, I don't know why Hawks loves fractions, but there's lots of fractions in these answers. All right, so let's get rid of all this stuff. Now we're going to substitute 0 for x. So what's 12 times 0? Well, it's nothing. It's gone, right? So I'm going to drop that, and I'm going to bring over here negative 10x is equal to 18. Now, how do I get rid of times times negative 10? I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10. This is gone. So my answer is a negative, and I can divide both of these numbers by 2. So I get negative 9 over 5. And in Hawks, it doesn't matter if you put the negative on the top or on the bottom or in front of the fraction. Hawks will accept all 3 of those answers. It doesn't matter where you put it as long as you have one negative sign. All right. So we have negative 9/5. So let's do the next one. What if x is 2? So we're going to multiply 12 times 2. Bring everything else down. So 12 times 2 is 24. We're going to solve for y. So we're going to do that by subtracting 24 from both sides. So we bring all that stuff down. This is gone. Negative 10y is equal to, what is that? Negative 6. Then the opposite of dividing by, multiplying by negative 10, we're going to divide both sides by negative 10. So y is equal to, what is a negative divided by a negative? Positive. Positive 6/10. Divide both of those numbers by 2, and we get 3/5. 3/5. So when x is 2, y is 3/5. All right, one more on this screen. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff so we have more room. You can always back it up and get the answers. All right, what about when y is 4? So make sure you're substituting in for the right variable. So this time we're going to bring down our x. We're going to multiply 10 times 4. So 10 times 4 is 40. Oops, I didn't write 40. I said 40. Now we want x by itself. How do we get rid of minus 40? We're going to add 40 to both sides. So we bring down 12x is equal to 58. Then how do you get rid of times 12? We divide both sides by 12. And then what can we divide 58 and 12 by? 2, I guess. It's the biggest number. So we get 29/6. My dog's in the room with me. And the answer, I believe, is 29/6, unless I did that wrong. But I think that's right. Let me know if I'm wrong. All right, moving on. Now this one is a little weird, but that's a good equation, right? So what if x is 0? Let's plug in for x. 0 equals y squared. So in other words, what does y have to be? If I take a number and square it, so you remember squaring a number means to simply multiply it by itself. So what number squared equals 0? That's the question. Well, it's 0, isn't it? So is this true? If I square 0, do I get 0? Yes. All right, the second one says, what if y is 3? X is equal to 3 squared. Well, what is 3 squared? What is 3 times 3? Well, that is 9, right? 3 squared is 9. So now we're going to substitute 16 for x. 16 is equal to y squared. In other words, what number times itself is 16? What number times itself is 16? The answer is 4. In other words, the square root, so basically we're finding the square root of both sides. The square root of y squared is y, square root of 16 is 4. All right, then what if y is 25? So 25 is equal to y squared. Once again, we're finding the square root of both sides. What number times itself is 25? The answer is 5. And then, I'm going to erase this stuff. This one says x is equal to -1, and I'm putting that in parentheses. We should always put what we're substituting in parentheses, and shame on me for not saying that earlier, but now we know. Anything that's being, especially when you have an exponent, anything being squared needs to be going in parentheses because we're squaring -1. So -1 times -1 is +1. If you don't use that parenthesis and you try to type that in your calculator, the calculator will tell you the answer is -1, but it isn't. It's +1. So we got to be careful that we use parentheses accordingly. All right, how you guys feel about all that? Let's do one more. I think this is the last one on this section. Yep, this is the last one we're going to practice, and then we're going to go to the next section. All right, so you guys go ahead and try these on your own. Pause the video, come back and check your answers. All right, did you guys substitute all these into the right spot? Let's see. So if I multiply 8 times 0, I get 0. So 8x is equal to 18. I'm sorry, 10x is equal to 18. I'm going to divide both sides by 10, divide both sides by 2, and I get 9/5. 9/5 for x. Now we're going to substitute 0 for this x, which basically makes that go away, right? So we're just left with -8y is equal to 18. How do you get rid of times -8? You divide by -8. So y is equal to, first of all, a positive divided by negative is a negative. So our answer is negative. Doesn't matter where you put that negative sign. Then we're going to divide both of those by 2, and we get -9/4. -9/4. All right, now x is 3. X is 3. Get rid of all this stuff. Whoops. Come on. All right, x is 3. So we're going to multiply 10 times 3 minus 8y equals 18. Now we're going to multiply. 10 times 3 is 30. And now I'm going to get y by itself. How do you get rid of a positive 13? I meant 13. It's a 30. Silly. All right, we're subtracting 30 from both sides. So I'm going to jump down here. -8y is equal to 18 minus 30. I think that's -12. Then we're going to get rid of times -8 by dividing both sides by -8. So then we have a negative divided by a negative. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Both of these numbers are divisible by 4. So then I'm going to get +3/2. We got that earlier, but on a different problem, 3/2. Very good. All right, one more. Y is 4 this time. So 10x minus 8 times 4. All right, so I'm going to jump down here. So we have 10x minus 32 equals 18. I want x by itself. So first I'm going to add 32 to both sides. And I get 10x is equal to, what would that be, 50? And then we finally get a whole number. We're going to divide both sides by 10, and we get 5. Very good. Is that right? 50 minus 32. Yep, that's right. Okie dokie. And that was the end of 3.1. I hope that wasn't too difficult for you. And now we're going to move on to 3.2. This time we're going to start graphing lines on a coordinate plane. A linear equation. So first of all, when you see the word linear, hopefully you see that word line. So if you have a linear equation, that simply means when you graph it, you're going to end up with a straight line. Okay? So standard form of linear equations can be written in this form right here. There's other forms that we're going to talk about soon, but this is considered standard form. AX plus BY is equal to C. All right, so when you graph lines on a coordinate plane, one of the easy ways to do it is to identify the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay, so when you're finding the y-intercept, you're going to set x equal to 0. When you find the y-intercept, you're going to set x equal to 0. When you find the x-intercept, you're going to set y equal to 0. Okay, so they're kind of like opposites. The y-intercept means x is 0. The x-intercept means y is 0. And I should have said this earlier, that ordered pairs are always written in the form x, y. So you can remember that because in the alphabet, x comes before y. So we're going to plug in 0 into the opposite when we're finding one of the intercepts. So how does that look? Oh, but first, let me just review linear equations. There's pretty much 4 types of linear equations. So if you have an equation and you see both an x and a y, that means that you have a line that slopes either up and to the right or down and to the right, okay? So if you have an equation that has both an x and a y, you have a line that slopes up or down to the right. If you have an equation with only an x, that means that you're going to end up with a vertical line. A vertical line goes this way. If you end up with an equation that has only a y, that means you're going to end up with a horizontal line. Okay, so if it has both an x and y, it either slopes up or down to the right. If it's got only one equation, or excuse me, one of the two variables, it's either going to be horizontal or vertical. So first thing we're going to do is find the two intercepts. So here we have in our equation, we're going to start with the x-intercept. So if we're going to find the x-intercept, that means that we're going to set y equal to 0. Okay, so think about our ordered pair. An ordered pair, we have x and then we have y. Well, we're saying that y is equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in a 0 into my ordered pair. And now that I'm literally going to do that, I'm going to multiply 8x plus 4 times 0. Well, anytime we multiply by 0, we get 0, right? So that little middle section right here is just going to basically disappear. And we end up with 8x is equal to negative 16. So to solve for x, we're going to divide both sides by 8, and x is equal to negative 2. X is equal to negative 2 when y is equal to 0. So here is our first ordered pair. All right, so let me get rid of this stuff, not all of it, some of it. So we just found the x-intercept. So what does that mean? That means that the line that we graph is going to intersect the x-axis at negative 2, 0. That's what it means. Now we're going to find the y-intercept. So when we find the y-intercept, what happens to our x value? Our x value is a 0. So for 8 times x, I'm just going to, if I was doing this on my paper, I would just put my finger over 8x and I wouldn't let myself see it anymore. I'm just going to cover it up. And all I want to see is 4y is equal to negative 16. So now to solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And y is equal to negative 4. Y is equal to negative 4 only when x is equal to 0. So those are my two ordered pairs. Those are the only two ordered pairs I have to graph, and then I can connect them and draw my line. So this first one tells me to go left 2 and then don't go up or down. So from the origin, I go left 2 and stop. The second one tells me to not go right or left, but go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my dot. I'm going to use my magic powers and try to draw a straight line, which I really am horrible at. It's not too bad, I guess. Could be worse. It will be before this lesson is over, I promise you. All right, so we've just graphed this equation that is written in standard form by finding the x and y intercepts. So that's our first line. Congratulations. We're going to graph many, many more. All right, moving on. We're going to graph this equation by finding the x and y intercepts. So we're going to start with the x-intercept, which means we're going to make y equal 0. So go ahead, when you start doing these, go ahead and fill in half of your ordered pair. So for the x-intercept, y equals 0, right? So now if y is 0, with my finger, I'm covering that up. I don't want to see that anymore because now it's gone. I'm left with negative 6x is equal to negative 12. What do I do to solve for x? I divide by negative 6. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. So the x-intercept is 2, 0, which is right there. Now I want to solve for the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, I'm going to make x equals 0, right? So here's half my ordered pair, x is 0. So I'm plugging in a 0 for this. So all of this, negative 6 times 0 is 0. That's gone. So I have 2y equals negative 12. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And when x equals 0, y is equal to negative 6. So if I graph that, that tells me don't go right or left, but go down 6 right there. And now here's my horrible straight line. Oh, yeah, I'm not good at that, guys. I definitely need practice. All right, and we have graphed our second line because of the x and y intercepts. Moving on. All right, now this one, it's not written in standard form. So standard form is when X and Y is on the same side of the equal sign. So we could write it in standard form. It doesn't really matter for finding the X and Y intercepts because we're plugging in 0 somewhere anyway. So let's start with our X intercept. So which number becomes 0 when we find our X intercept? The Y, right? And in Hawks, when it tells you, well, maybe I'll pull it up in just a second. All right, but let's practice this one first. So this time we are going to make Y equals 0 because we're finding the X intercept. So I see the Y right here. 7 times 0 is 0. That goes away. So what am I left with? I'm left with 7X plus 14 is equal to, what's left over here? 14. So I want X by itself. So I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. So I get 7X equals 0. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 7. So 0 divided by 7, if I put it in my calculator, I know that it equals 0. Okay. Now this one is a little strange because I know that when X is 0, Y is 0. So if I found the Y intercept and I made X equal 0, well, Y will also still be 0. So that means the X and Y intercept is the origin, 0, 0. Now with Hawks, when I was trying out their homework, I was like, okay, well then how are they going to know where the rest of the line goes? So the way I think you should do that, because you have to have 2 dots. Hawks will make you have 2 dots. And since the X and Y axis is the same, or excuse me, the X and Y intercepts are the same, you don't have 2 dots unless you create one. So the easiest thing I think you should do is if you made a little T-chart, you need to make up a value for X. So for example, you can make X equal 1, okay? So if I plug in, so this is only when the X and Y intercepts are both 0, 0, okay? I know this is a little confusing, but this is the way you'll have to do it in Hawks. So if X equals 1, if I plug in a 1 right here, 7 times 1 is 7. So let me write what I have now. So 7 plus 14 is equal to 7Y plus 14. All right, well, 14 plus 7 is 21 equals 7Y plus 14. I want to solve for Y, so I have to cancel out the 7 and the 14. So to get rid of plus 14, I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. So I bring everything else down. 21 minus 14 is 7. This is gone. Then if I want to solve for Y, I divide both sides by 7 and Y equals 1. So when X is 1, Y is 1. So I'm going to I'm going to graph positive 1, positive 1. So I'm going to start from the origin. I'm going to go right 1, up 1. So from here, I go right 1, up 1. And there are my 2 dots, and Hawks will let me graph that as long as I have 2 dots. Okay, I know that one was a tough one. Hopefully you don't get confused. The only reason we did that is because the X and Y intercept were both 0, 0. All right, I think we got 2 more of this kind. No, 3 more maybe. Yep, 3 more. All right, you guys want to try those on your own? Why don't you guys do those next 3? There's 2 on this page, 1 on the next slide, and then come back and check your answers. All right, hopefully you guys got some good answers there. So if we're going to find the x-intercept, we're going to make y 0. So this goes away right here because negative 3 times 0 is 0. So I have 5 equals 7x, negative 7, excuse me, minus 2x. I want to solve for x. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So 12 is equal to negative 2x. Divided by negative 2. So x is negative 6. Now I want to solve for the y-intercept by making x 0. All right. So if x is 0, I want to get rid of this. Let me pull this down. 5 minus 3y equals negative 2 times 0 is 0, so equals negative 7. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, so I have negative 3y is equal to negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 3, and y is equal to 4. So I'm going to go left 6, and then not up or down. The second one, I'm not going to go right or left. I'm going to go up 4, and there we go. That's it. Hopefully you guys got that right. All right, on this one, I got this straight from Hawks, and we're going to use a distributive property. Anytime you see those parentheses, you should realize you got to use the distributive property. So negative 9 times 9 is negative 81 minus, because negative 9 times x is negative 9x. All right, now, do you notice we have x's on both sides of the equal sign? We got to get our x's together. Get your x's together. So we're going to add 9x to both sides. So this is gone. So we have 9y is equal to negative 81. This is gone as well. These x's cancel each other out. So then to solve for y, I divide both sides by 9, and y is equal to negative 81 divided by 9 is 9. Now, we don't have an x anywhere, right? So if you end up without a variable x, that means there is no x-intercept. And one of your options is on Hawks is something like doesn't exist, I think is what it says. But if you end up with no x, that means there's no x-intercept. If you end up with only an x in the equation and no y, that means you do not have a y-intercept. But for our y equals 9, let me erase some of this stuff. Y equals 9, that means that we're going to end up having a horizontal line at 9. Now, I know that at this point, that doesn't make any sense to you. But since y equals 9, when x is 0, y equals 9. So that is 0, 9 right here. And then since there is no x value, that basically means that no matter what x is, y is always 9. So anywhere where y is 9, you can put another dot anywhere else to make your horizontal line, okay? All right, so that's leading me to discuss horizontal and vertical lines with you. So that's my next little section. So that we'll get back to that other one. That one's a little confusing. But did you guys do this one? I forgot about that. There was one more. So if you use the distributive property, this is going to be the same situation. This is on this one, we're going to cancel out the y values here, right? Both of those cancel, and we end up with only an x. We divide by 7, x equals 5. Well, there's not a y in the equation, which means there is no y-intercept. So for our x-intercept, when x is 5, y is 0, and we know that, right? Because we're talking about intercepts. So if 5 is if 5 is x, if that's the x-intercept, y must be 0. So this means go right 5 and don't go up or down. So this is the x-intercept. And then since there is no y value, that means that x is always 5. So at this point, x would be 5, 4. At this point, x would be 5, negative 5. At this point, x would be 5, negative 10. In other words, we're going to get a vertical line when there's no y-intercept. All right, so let me talk to you specifically about horizontal and vertical lines. So remember on that about second slide, I had said that if you have an x and a y in the equation, your line slopes to the up and to the right or down and to the right. If you only have one variable, you're either going to have a horizontal or vertical line. All right. All right, we'll get back to this page. We'll do this last. All right, so I want to talk to you about this acronym, VUX-HOI. This is going to help you remember vertical and horizontal lines. So V stands for vertical, H stands for horizontal lines. So the VUX means vertical. The U means that there's an undefined slope. So in your algebra class tonight, you're going to start talking about slopes. And your teacher will mention to you that if you have a vertical line, it means there's an undefined slope. And the X means that there's only an X in the equation. Only, oh, I didn't spell that right. Only an X in the equation. That's what VUX means. If you only have an X in the equation, that means you're going to have a vertical line. HOI means you have a horizontal line. You're going to talk about slope later, but that means you have a zero slope. That O actually represents a zero slope. And Y means there's only a Y in the equation. Did it again. Only Y in the equation. Oh, my writing is atrocious, you guys. Sorry about that. So let's look at a few of these. So if you notice, we only have an X. We only have an X in all three of these equations. So vertical, that tells us that we have a vertical line because we only have an X in the equation. So vertical means it goes this way, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to find 3 on the vertical axis. Excuse me. You're going to find 3 on the X axis. So here's 1, 2, 3. And you're going to draw a vertical line. In other words, you can have a dot anywhere else on that vertical line where X is equal to 3. Okay, so we just graphed that equation. X is equal to 3. That's it. It's a vertical line at X equals 3. All right, what about X equals -2? Well, on the X axis, -2 is right here. And we're going to make a vertical line on the X axis where X equals -2. And then finally, X equals 0. Well, X equals 0 right there. And since it's X equals, that means we're going to have a vertical line where X equals 0, which is actually the Y axis, which can get a little confusing, but just find 0 on the X axis and make your vertical line. So that's when you only have an X in the equation. You may also have only a Y in the equation. Well, that represents the word HOI. If you see Y equals, you need to think of the acronym VUX-HOI. You're going to have a vertical line. Excuse me, I said it wrong. You're going to have a horizontal line. If it asks you what the slope is, you're going to say 0. And there's your Y. You only have a Y in the equation. So you're going to find the number 4 on the Y axis. So here's the Y-axis. We're looking for the number 4, and we're going to draw a horizontal line. So anywhere on that line where Y is equal to 4, we're going to draw a horizontal line. So any of these can be coordinates, any of them. So now we're going to find where Y is equal to -4. So down here, here's -4. We're going to draw a horizontal line. Whoops, I just erased everything on accident. And then what about when Y equals 0? Well, here's the Y axis, right? And Y equals 0 right here. And since it's HOI, we know it's a horizontal line. And Y equals 0 is actually the X axis. All right, so let's go back to graphing linear equations. Now, if you notice, all of these have both an X and a Y. So how are you supposed to graph this? Well, we'll talk about the easy way to graph them in a couple of lessons after we've practiced a while. But if you have no idea how to get started, one thing that you can always do is make you a T-chart every time. Every time, make you a T-chart. And then you get to decide what your X's are going to be. So usually I'll throw in a negative number, 0, and a positive number, so you can see what it looks like. You only technically need 2 points to make a line, right? But 3 is not going to hurt you. So you are controlling your x's, and whatever your x is, that tells you what y will be. So we're going to multiply 3 times -2, because I decided x is going to be equal to -2, and then I'm going to add 2. So I'm going to stick that right in my calculator. 3 times -2 is -6, and -6 plus 4 is -2. So there's my first ordered pair, -2, -2, right there. Well, now I'm going to let x equal 0. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2. So there's my second ordered pair. Don't go right or left, go up 2. And then for my last x value, I'm going to say x equals 3. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 2 is 8. So I'm going to graph +2, +8. So +2, +1, 2, 3, 8. And I can draw my line that goes up and to the right. And it goes up and to the right because I have both an x and a y in my equation. All right, let's do another one. Let's do the second one. We're going to make another T-chart. I'm going to do the same x values. I'm going to plug in for x. -2 times -2 is +4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So I'm going to go left 2, up 5, left 2, up 5. Then x equals 0. So -2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So don't go right or left, but go up 1. And then finally, -2 times 2 is -4, and -4 plus 1 is -3. So I'm going to go right 2, down 1, 2, 3. And I've just graphed this linear equation from a T-chart. And then the last one, now this one, it kind of looks like I'm missing something, but I still have an x and a y, which tells me that my line will be sloping up and to the right or down and to the right. It's not vertical or horizontal because I have both an x and a y. So I'm going to use the same points for my x, and I'm going to use blue this time, or purple, it doesn't matter. So what is 4 times -2? That would be -8. 4 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 4 is +8. So I'm going to go left 2, down 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I'm going to do 0, 0, and then I'm going to go right 2, up 8. And there is my third line that slopes up and to the right, goes up and to the right. Okay. All right, so you will be graphing and talking about slope tonight in your algebra class. I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that. You'll also be talking about your x and y intercept again in college algebra. You'll be graphing from tables and x and y intercepts, and you're going to be talking about horizontal and perpendicular lines. I think that's a misprint. I think it's supposed to say horizontal and vertical lines. Yeah, that's definitely a misprint on your assignment sheet. All right, you guys, well, I hope that helped. And like I said, I will be live at 6 o'clock. I'll start full group at 6:40, and I hope to see you all then. So I'll see you guys later.